Hey there fellas, thanks for tuning in. So over this free video stretch, I'll be addressing the prominent question, where will Elder Scrolls 6 take place? Bethesda has been dropping clues for the past few years in these little packages that we're calling the Elder Scrolls 6 teaser trailer, the Starfield trailer Easter egg, and the New Year's tweet. The clues are vague, so at this point all we can really do is speculate. But ES6 has been on the agenda for some time now, so Bethesda likely has a plan set in stone. And by that I mean they've probably already picked the setting and the plot of Elder Scrolls 6, and possibly more as well. So let's begin with the Elder Scrolls 6 teaser trailer. The area seen here has a dry terrain with minimal flora and different levels of elevation. There's some kind of fortress or castle on the ridge here, and what appears to be a city further along the coast. A few different theories have been thrown around regarding what Bethesda is showing in this trailer. My first idea was actually that the fortress is Alcair Castle and the city is Wayrest. Though in light of more recent clues, I find another theory far more likely. Another YouTuber called Camel runs a channel called Camelworks, which is linked in the description, and he presented a theory that I think is more than likely our answer, and I'd like to expand upon his findings. Let's begin with the shadows. Many have pointed out the shadows which indicate where the sun is. On some maps, that information would be meaningless. However, in this case, we have a coast, and we know where the coasts of Tamriel are. So by cross-referencing this information, we end up with two possibilities here. We're either looking southwest with the sun in the west, or we're looking northeast with the sun in the east. For the latter to be the case, this would need to be Morrowind or Blackmarsh. Neither of those really fit with the imagery, which leaves us with the former. For the sun to be in the west, this would need to be one of the following: the Somerset Isle, Valenwood, the Golden Coast, Hammerfell, or High Rock. And the imagery of this dry and mountainous terrain could very well depict High Rock or Hammerfell. Now, to narrow this down a bit further, let's try to figure out what this fortress is. I agree with Camel here as well. It is likely Azra's crossing from the Elder Scrolls Travels Shadow Key, which is located in Hammerfell. The structure is located not far from a coast, in an area that we have already decided is either High Rock or Hammerfell. It's a fortress overlooking a massive crater. Azra Nightwielder created a massive crater next to Azra's crossing after losing control of his shadow magic. The shape of the coastline and the terrain both fit the view one would see looking west from Azra's crossing. Furthermore, Bethesda is notorious for hinting the setting of sequels in current games. For example, the Commonwealth was heavily referenced in Fallout 3, then years later it became the setting of Fallout 4. Also, the political unrest surrounding Uriel VII's secession was touched upon in Morrowind, and Cyrodiil became the setting of the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, with the secession being a major piece of the plot. So, perhaps there are hints about the setting of Elder Scrolls 6 in Skyrim. There are multiple signs within Skyrim that do point to Hammerfell, which is consistent with what we've discussed so far. First, the quest In My Time of Need stars Sadia, who claims to be on the run from the Iliac warriors of Hammerfell. That quest could hint the plot of ES6 as well. Both Sadia and the Iliac warriors claim to be against the Thalmor and tell very different stories about their roles in the conflict. That could be a questline in ES6. Another reference to Hammerfell can be found in the Dragonborn DLC, and this one really fits with what we've discussed so far. Neloth references Azra Nightwielder and sends the player to find some of his staffs during the quest Azra's Staves. Neloth also sends the player on a quest to retrieve the book Wind and Sand, which is about the Iliac Desert in Hammerfell. Now, for further confirmation that we are on the right track, let's figure out what town is in the distance along the coast. Assuming we're right about the fortress being Azra's Crossing, there is a town that should be right in that spot just before the Free Jutouts, and that's Satakalaam, a town featured in ESO and Daggerfall. As Camel pointed out on his channel, the peculiar shape of the coast matches perfectly with what would be in the area around Satakalaam on this map of Tamriel, and it also fits perfectly with Azra's Crossing being here. So why is Bethesda showing us Satakalaam? After all, it's a pretty obscure town. So why show us this in a teaser trailer? Well, guess what? I've got an idea. One of the other clue drops, which we'll discuss in the next video, is the New Year's tweet, which gives us the line, "Transcribe the past and map the future." Maybe part of that hint applies to this teaser trailer as well. The Elder Scrolls Travel's Shadow Key, which featured this region, actually begins in Azra's Crossing, so maybe there is symbolic meaning in this image. Perhaps by showing us where a past game opens in the foreground, they are also showing us where a future game opens in the distant background. After all, Elder Scrolls games have opened in obscure towns like this before, like say the Aenean and Helgen. To sum up one more time, maybe in this instance we're meant to transcribe Azra's Crossing being where Shadow Key opens as the past, and map the future as Satakalaam is where the next Elder Scrolls game will open. Some may ask, if that body of water is the Iliac Bay, then why can't we see the other side? I mean, we should be able to see High Rock from here, right? Firstly, that would be too obvious. These clue drops are meant to be a puzzle, and there aren't many places that look like the Iliac Bay in Elder Scrolls, so showing us the other side would make this way too easy. Second, maybe the Elder Scrolls 6 map doesn't exactly reflect past maps. After all, the in-game map we ended up with in Skyrim is very different from the Imperial Libraries map of Skyrim that came out only a few years prior to Skyrim's release. And that was a wise choice, because that map of Skyrim was very lopsided. You ended up with this huge area in the west here that had no big cities, and that would have been awkward in-game. Looking at the Imperial Libraries map of Hammerfell, there isn't much I'd change here. I might move Rahad a bit further north, Alanhir or Skaven a bit more south, just to balance out the settlements a bit more. The major thing is that Peninsula would have to look much less like a miniature Somerset Isle. I've always noticed that looking at the map of Tamriel, it just looks awkward. Also, back on subject, maybe Wayrest is just out of view to the north, right where it should be, and we just can't see it. Last thing to talk about with the terrain, assuming that we are looking southwest towards Satakalaam, and judging from the scale that would entail here, these are likely the Dragontail Mountains. If you look closely, you can see white birds flying toward water. Camel pored over the bestiaries of Elder Scrolls and found that there are only 2 species of white birds, the Felsad tern, which is found only on Solstheim, and Seagulls, which live in Hammerfell. Since this is most definitely not Solstheim, that leaves us with Seagulls, which fits with our Hammerfell theory. That's all I have to say for now about the Elder Scrolls 6 teaser trailer. The next video will cover the Starfield teaser trailer Easter egg, and after that we'll talk about the New Year's tweet. Also make sure to check out Camel's videos as well, because he was really the first guy to nail this theory that I've expanded upon with some of my own findings here. Please hit that like button, subscribe, share, every bit helps me. See you next time.